all of these MAGA people. Where are they? These black MAGA people. It's amazing how quiet they are. So this decision impacts black people in Lowndes County. The Cancer Alley decision to stop that lawsuit against petrochemical company affects black people in Louisiana. They stopped a lawsuit dealing with black people in voting in Texas. Donald Trump does not give a damn about black people. And all of these black people, all of those Negroes who were so happy.
This is not helpful, and the conversation is not in good faith. My problem is categorizing people into groups as if people always think one thing at any given point in their life, and because they think one thing, everything else falls in line with that. I have a problem on both sides. I have a problem when conservatives do it. I have a problem when liberals do it. We are complex people, and people like Roland Martin are tribal, and being tribal is not going to give you the benefit of nuanced arguments. So what he's saying here is not useful, it's not helpful, and it's not something that I agree with. But let's see what he is actually saying.
Smiling and shucking and jiving at the White House Black History Month party. It's amazing how quiet all of them they are. Where's Michaela Montgomery? Where's C.J. Pearson? Where is David Harris? Where is what's his name? Pinto. Where are all these folks? Where's that little girl from FAMU who's running around? It's amazing how quiet they are when these things are impacting black people, and you don't hear peep.
Well, it's also amazing how quiet Roland Martin is when things that are happening are affecting black people adversely. And what I mean by that is, like, the whole conversation about immigration should be a lot more nuanced. And as black people, and I always struggle to just say black people because all black people don't think the same. And how do you define what black is? Is it someone with two black parents? Is it someone that grew up culturally black? Let's define that. And until you can define that, just using that category isn't always helpful. But the immigration issue, if you're looking at black people as they define it, it does impact them. And quite often, Roland Martin is silent. But today, I want to talk about someone and react to a video where someone has actually gone out and started talking to Black MAGA. I'm going to be reacting to that video, and I'm also going to be adding my 2 cents.
Black conservatives are everywhere.
That's why I'm here to show my support as a black man for Trump.
Pollsters can't get enough of them.
The historic levels of support the Republicans are getting from black folk under Trump.
Donald Trump is cozying up to them.
Come here, let me give you a hug.
And the RNC was full of them.
President Trump, we have the greatest economy in our lifetime.
America is not a racist country.
Can you imagine President Donald?
Aha. See, that's part of the problem. We make these broad, sweeping statements that maybe the spirit of what we're saying people understand, but the thing we say people will just tear apart. To say a country is specifically America, to say America is a racist country, or to say America is not a racist country, either one is going to be problematic. I understand what he was saying, and I understand the point that he made as you get the context of what he was saying, but I also understand why people attacked what Tim Scott said. And Tim Scott, as a conservative black man, is always going to be attacked because he does not align with the views of the liberal audience. This is going to be a video where you get to choose. You get to make up your mind by getting a hopefully nuanced view of what some black conservative people are thinking and why they're supporting Donald Trump.
Trump coming to a city and calling a pastor like me.
You've probably heard a lot of people talking about black Republicans, but I spent all of the RNC talking to black Republicans.
So it is with being a black conservative. I equate it to being gay back in the 50s or 60s. You didn't come out the closet then.
And so you look at the people who really saying that about Trump. It's not no uppity Negroes. It's Negroes out the real hood.
And that's one reason why I'm pro-Trump and I'm a conservative, is because I truly believe in the individualistic approach to the problems that we see within the black community or in America. as a whole.
Black Republicans specifically are some of the most disliked and unpopular political figures within the black community for a reason.
I'm pissed.
Of the 4 black Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives, zero represent majority black districts.
I am royally pissed.
In fact, they all represent majority white districts, something they seem to be very proud of.
South Carolina is majority white, correct?
Yeah, it's Georgia.
My district is majority white district. Your Utah is majority white district, correct? Michigan, really. Florida, is your district majority white district? Well, how do we get here?
Well, that's an interesting question. It's very interesting to have the conversation around the fact that inherently Republicans are racist and therefore, they don't like black people. But then you have these representatives that are all representing majority non-black districts. Why is that? How does that come about? And how do you deal with that tension between the fact that, you're saying that they're all racist, that all Republicans are racist, but then you have some black Republicans. And again, the tent is quite broad on both sides. You do have people that are conservative, that agree and align with some of the more liberal views. So you have some people that are fiscally conservative, but maybe socially they're more liberal, and the other way around. But I do find that black conservatives are attacked in a unique way by other black people.
A lot of white people had to vote for it.
There is an obvious disconnect, and that's what I want to explore today. I wanted to know what draws a black person to identify with this Republican Party.
Trump has been for black people, regardless of what the media say, for a long time.
The Bible say we perish through a lack of knowledge, right? So until you teach the people, that's the only way they're gonna learn. So it's our job, me especially as a black conservative, to get out there, get on the ground, and teach these people all about the black conservative movement. And when you look at the movement now, especially right now, we speaking, baby.
I learned a lot about black Republicans in these conversations. Their motivations, their stories, their goals. These are real people with genuinely held beliefs. Beliefs that I largely disagree with, and I told them as much.
It wasn't policy, it was white people.
One of the things that we have to understand about beliefs is the epistemology of someone's belief. That's my SAT word. But the why people believe what they believe. And when you go into every conversation, as I try to do, I go into every conversation assuming that I'm wrong. I don't go into the conversation assuming that I'm right. And that allows me to be more curious. It allows me to ask more questions. And it also means that I don't dig in on an idea or concept, because what quite often happens with us is we dig in, we say a thing, we at some point realize that we're wrong, but because we were so rude and didn't show any grace and we dug in so deep, our pride will not allow us to just say that we're wrong. So when I have these conversations, I want to understand why people believe what they believe. Because think about it this way. If someone's actual core beliefs is built around a specific idea, when you challenge that idea in one conversation, you're not taking into account that in order to accept your idea, they may have to reshape their whole life. So if you look at religious beliefs, for example, if someone believes a particular religious doctrine and therefore their wife or husband aligns with that, their community, their friends, the place that they worship all aligns with that, and then you bring up something that goes against that, it's not just them accepting that one idea. It's about them going home and telling their wife or husband that they no longer believe this thing. They may have a job in that field. As I said, they may worship every week in that particular religion. So you have to approach these things from the perspective of we all have beliefs. We have beliefs under that, and we have beliefs underneath that. And the things that we believe drive the communities that we're in. So just breaking that one belief is more than just the person accepting that idea. And when we have conversations in good faith, you can share information and allow the person to go on a path of self-discovery.
Well, white people, it was
No. Let's be very clear. It was white people. No.
I tried to have respectful dialogue with them. So in this video, I want to share these people with you, but I'll also share some of my reflections on the experience of listening to, fact-checking, and disagreeing with black Republicans. I learned a lot about black Republicans, and I think you will too. So with that, let's dig in. In talking to Black Republicans, I found that their most consistent ideological North Star was an emphasis on personal responsibility. For those I spoke to, there was a real value for rigid individualism as opposed to collective progress and identity. Take Topher, for example. He's a Christian rapper, has millions of followers online, and believes, according to him, in an individualistic approach to progress for Black people.
And that's one reason why I'm pro-Trump and I'm a conservative, is because I truly believe in the individualistic approach to the problems that we see within the Black community or in America as a whole. And you can think about it, Black Wall Street, Harlem Renaissance, all that time, we was doing great. But when the policies came in and started destroying the Black community slowly and slowly. Matter of fact, it was supposed to get rid of poverty or at least lessen it, but we have more poverty now than we had back then.
I think you'll notice a theme of dissonance present in these interviews. On the one hand, for example, Topher endorses an individualistic approach to solving the problems we face as a community. But on the other hand, he points to Black Wall Street or the Harlem Renaissance, communities that I would consider on the Mount Rushmore of Black collective power. And he points to them as times we should look back on with admiration.
I think both things can be true at the same time. I think that structurally everything does start with individual responsibility. And as it says in the Bible, is like, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So as for me, so I have to first get my stuff together in line, take individual responsibility for me, for the way that I conduct my life, for the foods that I eat, for exercising, for all of those things. So that's me and my house. So then that means I have to then take responsibility over my house. So that would be my wife, my kids, so me, my house, and then it goes down into the broader community, because I am now able to be a better use to the community, a better role model, because I've taken care of me. If I'm just reliant on external things, then those external things will make me potentially lazy. If I know I don't have to go out and work, or I don't have a responsibility to go out and work, or if I don't feel that I have the responsibility to be a good role model in my home and in the broader community, you don't have Black Wall Street. You don't have people that are waking up on time to go to a job. You don't have people that are willing to go against adversity to better themselves. You have people waiting and feeling as if they're supposed to get it. So both things can be true at the same time. But I think if you don't have that individual responsibility, you don't get the community and collective action.
Question is, which one is it? Is it rigid individualism where we get it out of the mud on our own? Or is it about creating communities where we work together to build our collective resources? What's also interesting is that somehow for him, these communities no longer exist because of liberal or progressive policy decisions.
But when the policies came in and started destroying the Black community slowly and slowly. Matter of fact, it was supposed to get rid of poverty or at least lessen it, but we have more poverty now than we had back then.
I think it's worth pointing out that this more poverty now than back then line is verifiably false. It falls in line with a theme that people like Byron Donalds have advanced continuously throughout this election cycle. The idea that we were better off in any way during the Jim Crow era.
During Jim Crow, the Black family was together.
Yeah, that's right.
During Jim Crow, more Black people were not just conservative, because Black people always have been conservative-minded, but more Black people voted conservatively.
It's worth noting that the Black poverty rate has been falling ever since Black people started receiving civil rights protections. It's almost as if these progressive policies worked.
Now, you mentioned Black Wall Street, brother, and I want to be very real with you.
That depends on your value system. And so again, I understand what Byron Donalds was saying. I don't agree with everything, but I would say if you value the traditional household and having both parents in the house, then you could make an argument that by having that, even with what's going on in society, there were some benefits to that. If you then also value the fact that you had people that wanted to raise a family, people that had Christian values, if you value those things, an argument can be made, because quite often through adversity, we thrive. We don't get lazy. We know we have to work harder for things. Now, the legislation, the laws that were put in place to help Black people and to work against some of the more racist laws that were in place, those are all good things. But an argument can be made to say that it's probably better having both parents in a house than just having one parent. If you look at the statistics do show that a two-parent household is probably less likely to be in poverty than a one-parent household. When you look at the statistics, you do see that people who grow up in a functioning, loving family are not going to have the same issues that someone who's growing up in a household where they don't have that support. So two things can be true at the same time, but if you lean into one statistic and just don't put the nuance in it, then you're going to probably be a little bit disingenuous. So I do feel that when you look at what Thomas Sowell said, Thomas Sowell was talking about the fact that the black family was more intact, closer to the end of slavery than we are now. And if that's your value, then that will be the basis of that argument that you're making, that it wasn't all good and it wasn't all bad.
Black Wall Street was Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Greenwood District, where black people built their own community, had their own self-sustained community, beautiful economy, making it for themselves, and white people destroyed it.
Yeah.
It wasn't policy. It was white people.
Well, it wasn't white people. It was
no. Let's be very clear. It was white people.
No.
It
was those white people.
It was white people in that community. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And let me just say this: Elaine, Arkansas, Rosewood in Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, the Sweet Auburn District, North Nashville and in Nashville, Tennessee. Each one of these communities were booming black economies where white people, not in the same place, but it was the same group of people every time, destroyed those communities. So you can't say it's policy when when black people do what they need to do and build for themselves and white people destroy it. Yeah. So why is it that you would frame it as a policy thing?
But then you could also make the argument around Rosa Parks. So there was a thriving bus company for black people at the time of Rosa Parks. And what Rosa Parks did, and it was very noble and it was potentially the right thing to do, she was trying to integrate the society, again, noble and right thing to do. But that thriving bus company went out of business because of that. So again, when you look at the facts, look at the details, and you try to have a nuanced argument, you can find features and benefits, pros and cons to different situations. Now, I think the Black Wall Street conversation is brought up so often, but I'm not sure if we'd be able to build that type of thing now, even though we don't have as many obstacles. Because I could also bring up the fact about like rap music and black culture, negative black culture. I think that undermines who we are and what we do far more than a lot of the residuals of Jim Crow or the residuals of slavery. I know I have nephews and nieces and cousins who have grown up in an America where the first president they were ever aware of was a black president twice, right? And so they know that anything's achievable, but maybe they're just not making the right decisions because culturally they're letting the negative cultural gravity pull them down. They're not saying, well, look, I'm just going to be the best. I'm going to work hard. They're looking at the rap videos. They're looking at the black athletes with 4 or 5 baby mamas. And instead of gravitating towards the more positive things, they gravitate towards the negative things. So that's not a policy. That's not a structural thing. That is just a black culture thing that some people tend to want to gravitate towards, as opposed to some of the positive things.
I didn't frame it as a policy thing.
We can rewind it.
You said it was white people.
You mentioned.
I said it wasn't white people. It was those white people. And the reason why I'm saying that is because now we're trying to categorize all white people as evil.
No.
And what I'm trying to say is back then, because a lot of people don't know this, I'm gonna put this on record. Black Wall Street rebuilt themselves after that. 4 years after that, Black Wall Street rebuilt everything they had, and they prospered for the next 40 years until policy came in and destroyed it because they decided to build a freeway over their town, and that destroyed. So what I'm saying is, if we look at policy and the cultural essence of most things, right? It's not just policy, it's culture.
I was trying to draw a distinction between the nature of progressive policy, like the Civil Rights Act, or Supreme Court decisions to overturn segregation, and white supremacist policy, like destroying black communities. But the subject kept changing. Lucky for you, I actually made a video about Tulsa, Oklahoma's Greenwood District. It was definitely white racism that destroyed black Wall Street and other black communities through explicitly racist acts of state-sanctioned violence. This is why an accurate, full telling of history is so important. Black oppression and black progress have always had a collective quality to them. Black people have been, throughout American history, targeted as a group, from slavery to black codes to Jim Crow to mass incarceration to anti-inclusion efforts today. But we've also made progress by harnessing the power of collective action during Reconstruction and the Civil Rights Movement, and even today during the black-owned business boom.
From LBJ, that's why he said we're having these Negroes voting Democrat for the next 200 years. But all those policies have not done what they promised. Would you agree?
I would not agree.
So you think we're better off as black people now than we were before LBJ passed those policies?
Yes, brother, we can vote without the threat of violence. Are you talking about the Civil Rights Act of 1964? Is that what you're describing as a negative thing?
I'm not saying the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was, I'm talking about...
That's LBJ, I just want to be clear. That's LBJ, who you said, were we better off before LBJ? LBJ signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
I'm talking about the war on poverty.
I just want to answer that one. I want to answer that specific one first. Was the Civil Rights Act of 1964 bad?
I agree with the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Thank you.
But at the same time, I'm also, put it like this, I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery.
I don't know what that means.
It sounds like a soundbite. It sounds like one of those NPC things that you say when you're in an argument and you're not being curious, or I should say a discussion and you're not being curious, because you can see by the halting conversation, maybe he's realizing that what he's saying is either not accurate, he's not sure, he's not confident, and that's okay. And that's why approaching it from a position of curiosity, a position of discovery, is always going to be a healthier way of going about it, because you can admit you're wrong in the spot, or you can say, well, actually, I've never seen that, I didn't know that, let me go away and find out more about that. Because obviously the person that's put this video together is well read in the area that he's speaking about, but there's always nuance. I think a lot of the things that happened in the 1960s had positive results, and some of them had negative results, but it's also going to depend on what your value system is and what's important to you.
Explain
what it
more.
means is I would rather, given the fact that even back then we still had our families together, communities were stronger back then, I would rather deal with the dangerous freedom of not knowing and controlling people with policies as much as possible versus the peaceful slavery of being married and tied to the government.
Given Trump's well-documented history of saying and doing racist things, I wanted to know how these black people could be drawn into Trump's...
Oh, that frustrates me when people say that. First of all, I don't like to use the word racist, in the sense that I'm old enough to remember when you had bigots, you had people that were prejudiced. The word racist was not a commonly used word. So you'd say this person is a bigot or this person is prejudiced. And then we have this thing where black people can't be racist. But if we use that term, I remember I grew up in New York, so I remember a time where all the rappers were hanging out with Donald Trump, where, he was the epitome. He was in Home Alone, right? He was that person that represented just the American dream. He was on Oprah Winfrey, and you can definitely look this up. And Oprah Winfrey was like wooning over him, and he was actually asked after that interview, because Oprah Winfrey had talked about him running for president, and what he said then has been consistent, and he's aged, and some of his views have crystallized, and he's become a lot meaner, but his core belief has been consistent. And a few months after being on Oprah Winfrey, he was asked if he ran for president, who he'd want as his vice president, and he said Oprah Winfrey. And this was in the late 80s or early 90s. So this idea or narrative that Donald Trump has always been a racist and he doesn't like black people, I'm not sure if I buy into it. Is he a mean-spirited person at times? Absolutely. Does he say and do things that people could take as, not a good or nice thing to say or do? 100%. But he does it against everybody. He does it against anyone that bruises his ego. He does it against anyone that says or does something he doesn't like. And then when you come back and say something nice, then he can forgive and forget. So I just think leaning into this whole thing that Donald Trump is a racist, he's always been a racist, I'm not sure that that's helpful, and it's certainly not in good faith. But if people want to believe that, they can believe that.
Political orbit. So I talked to Pastor Lorenzo Sewell.
Yeah, so anyone that wants to come to church, they're able to come. So when President Trump called, I thought about it like you calling me and say, hey, Pastor, I want to invite a friend to church who has 34 felonies. Hey, Pastor, I want to invite a friend to church who is a womanizer. Hey, Pastor, I want to invite a friend to church who could be a racist.
He's the lead pastor at a black church in Detroit that Trump visited earlier this year. And he was also a featured speaker at the RNC.
So all my friends back in Detroit who are Democrats, I want to ask you just one simple question. You can't deny the power of God on this man's life. You can't deny that God.
I don't know enough about this pastor to say anything, but I'm always suspicious when people allow politicians to use the church as a platform, because I just think that it's very difficult to, as a Christian or as someone who professes to be a Christian, to align with any political party 100%. So I think if they are going to be given a platform, you have to call out the bad behavior as well, and no one's going to want to do that. So the smiling and I'm not sure how comfortable I am with that. And when it happened at the time, I'm not sure how comfortable I was. I don't like people interjecting Christianity or faith into the political conversation or using that as the reason to support. Now, I 100% believe that everybody needs to vote. Everybody needs to vote. So at some point, you're going to have to pick a side. I think the idea that most black people vote Democrat is scary to me, because I don't think that everyone is voting based on issues or their personal circumstances. I just think it's kind of a default position. But I think that on the Democratic side, there's a lot of good things that align with the Christian faith. I think some diametrically oppose the Christian faith. I also think that for the conservatives, and as I said, you have to pick a side at some point when you go into that booth and vote. I think you have to be engaged in the political system. As far as black conservatives, I'm not sure that anyone should just say, I am this thing. Let's look at the different policies. Let's have meaningful discussion in good faith. And let's try to understand the why people think what they think. This is part one. There will be part two. Make sure that you check out the part two, where we will continue to look at this video where this person has gone in and talked to black conservatives. He's giving his views. I'm giving my views. Make sure you like and subscribe, and make sure that you leave a comment.